Alright, so today's lesson is the horizontal and vertical lines. Alright, we've worked with a lot of stuff called slanted, which we can either slant up or we can slant down in a negative direction. So that's what it means by slanted. Today we're going to talk about both a horizontal line and a vertical line. Right? So that's actually what we're looking at in both of these. As a horizontal line is shown in A and a vertical line is shown in B. Okay. All right. So we'll work with solely the horizontal line first, and then we'll switch over and work with the vertical line next. Okay. All right. So if we're looking at this line here, you can see 1 point here and 1 point here. I'm just going to add on just a couple more points to make what they're asking in the first question a little bit more obvious. Now if I actually give you the coordinates of all these points, like this is the coordinate 1, 3. This has a coordinate of 4, 3. This point is negative 2, 3. And this point over here is negative 4, 3. Okay. So if you look, all the points on this line had a very, very, very specific y value, right? 3, 3, 3, and 3. So our horizontal line, what we'll notice about them is that all the y values, or y coordinate, are 3 in this case. Well, that kind of helps us out when we're actually going to describe an equation or use an equation that describes all of the points on this line. It makes sense that we would use the equation y equals 3 because all y values are equal to 3. Okay. Now, as far as the next question, it asks us to calculate the slope. So we've been doing a lot of this graphically, and if I look at 2 points on this line, so let's pick this point to this point. Okay, slope we should know as the idea of rise over run. And what you will see is this line does not rise at all. To get from this point to this point, it has no rise, so the rise is 0, but it did run too. Okay. So now if I do that in the calculator, I do 0 divided by 2, you get 0. And that's my final answer. So horizontal lines have a 0 slope. And a good way to remember that is the top part of the z is flat, so it kind of resembles the horizontal line for 0. Okay. Moving on to exercise B. Now if we're looking at this graph, which is our vertical line, which is straight up and down, okay, I'm going to plot a couple more points again to make that first question they're asking us a little bit more obvious. So I'm going to give the coordinates of all these points. This is 2, 4. This is 2, 2. This point is 2, negative 1. And this point here is 2, negative 4. Okay, so what's true about all these points? Well, take a look. This time it's changed. It's not the y value that's all the same, it's the x value. So all the x values are 2, which then helps us out with the equation. Well, if all the x values are 2, then it gives us the equation x equals 2. And if we use the same concept as we did in the question to the left of the idea of how do we calculate slope? Well, let's do it graphically. Rise over run. Okay, I'm going to pick 2 points. So let's say I pick this point and I want to pick this point. This clearly has a rise. I'm definitely going up from this point to here, which is a rise of 3. But you'll notice that it doesn't move to the right at all, or to the left. So that's the 0. Now, if you tried to do this in your calculator of 3 divided by 0, you're going to get this message. Okay, an error You cannot divide by 0. So there's a couple of words that they use for that. The first word is they call that undefined slope. Also known as that there's no slope. Okay. So this line right here for the word no kind of resembles more of like the vertical line. Okay. So no slope is for vertical lines and 0 slope is for horizontal. Okay, which is going to help us out in the next problem. Okay, into exercise 2. Okay. Looking at exercise 2, they ask us more specifically about the idea of both the horizontal and the vertical line. Alright, so if we look at horizontal lines, they're always going to be parallel, and if we look up here real quick, here's that line. Okay, it's a horizontal line, and notice that the x-axis is also a horizontal line. So an equation that's horizontal is always going to be parallel to the x-axis because it's also horizontal. So the answer to this one is it's going to be parallel with the x-axis. And it's always going to have the form of y equals and then some number. Also because it goes through the y-axis, that's the reason why it has a y equals number. And their slopes, as we just discovered, is 0. Is equal to 0. It has a 0 slope. Okay. Which is just the reverse of what a vertical line, okay, or parallel to the y-axis. Okay, and again, if we look at the picture here, here's the line of x equals 2, and you can clearly see that it is indeed parallel to the y-axis, meaning they both have the same slope. Okay. Its equation will always be an x equals, and then some number, and that's what we found up here in this equation here. Okay. And the fact that the slopes are always undefined or are, and then we would write no slope. Right? Okay, moving on to the next page. So it asks us here to be able to shade in the figure enclosed by the lines whose equations are shown below. Now notice it says the words lines. And they want us to label them, and they want us to graph them. Okay. So I'm going to do the two that we recently have been studying. Now, the common misconception that kids have is that if they graph y equals 9, they think that that's their answer, which is somewhat part of your answer, but it's not fully. If I wanted you to graph just this point alone, I would ask you to graph the point 0, 9. Not give you a y equals 9. So remember, y equals 9 means that all y values for every single point are 9. So what is that going to give me? All these points that have y values that are equal to 9. So it gives me a straight line, horizontal line, all the way across. Okay. And again, people have the misconception about this point too, where x equals 6, and they think that they're done there. And again, if I wanted that point, I would ask you for 6, 0, not x equals 6. Okay. So, nope. It really means that you want a whole bunch of points where all the x values are 6. So that gives me a line where all the x values are 6. I'm going to draw it. All those points that I had just drawn, here, 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 and here, all have a value of x equals 6. But now you have to be careful because when you get a graph that looks like this, you're getting more than one equation on here. So you have to remember that you'll want to label these with their equations. Okay. Now we've studied these equations before, right? So again, this is my m and this is my b. So I'm going to begin at 4. And this tells me because it's negative, it only means to go down. And then I'm always going to go to the right. So I go down 5 and then right. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing again. Okay, I have just enough points where if I take a straight edge, I can connect them where I don't have to graph any more points. Okay. And again, it's your third line, so we want to make sure that we label this line. Y equals negative 5/3 x plus 4. Now, as far as exercise 4 and exercise 5 go, I'm going to pause here. We're going to talk about these a little bit later on. If you have any further questions, please make sure you ask.